Hello friends, today I take up a new topic and the title of this topic is Impact of Electoral Politics in Indian Society. So my lesson plan includes why is it in the news? Number 2, electoral process in pre-independent India, electoral process since independence, classification of parties in India, impact of electoral politics, rise of casteism in election, rise of increasing communal divide, regional sentiments is increasing, linguistic preference among voters, personality-based parties, and finally conclusion. Electoral process in India. Before starting the electoral process in independent India, let us peep into the electoral process in pre-independent India during the period of British India. So what we see that in 1884, the electoral process was started by the then Viceroy, Lord Ripon, in election of local self bodies. Although the franchise was very much restricted and it was based upon the qualification of property and education for voters. So it was very much a restricted franchise. However, this electoral process was started since the time of Viceroy Lord Ripon. The voting rights now in 1909, the provision of separate electorate was provided by which the Muslims got separate constituencies. All parties were directed to put their candidate belonging to Muslim religion in certain constituencies earmarked as separate constituency. So what you see that in 1919 the provision of separate electorate was further enlarged by including Sikhs, Christian and European. Now on the basis of the 1935 Act, elections were held in the 11 provinces in British India, and all around 14% people were eligible to cast their votes, and the qualification of property and education was fixed for them to become eligible as voter. Congress won thumping majority in 7 provinces, and with the coalition of other parties, it formed government in 2 states. So in all together, out of 11 provinces in British India, Congress formed government in 9 provinces, and that government in provinces continued till 1939. So this is a short story of the electoral process in pre-independent India. Now friend, we switch over to the electoral process since independence. As you know that our constitution provided universal suffrage to all citizens. I mean the voting rights to all citizens, and so the first general election was held in 1952, and in 2019 it was the 17th general election in which the BJP got thumping majority, I mean 303 seats out of 543 seats in Lok Sabha. It was the biggest win for BJP since its inception. Now, what you see, there were 6 national parties in 2019 election, and the criteria fixed by Election Commission to become a national party is, number 1, that a national party must secure 6% valid votes in any 4 or more states at the general election of the Lok Sabha or Legislative Assembly, or it wins 4 seats in the Lok Sabha from any state, or if it wins 2% of seats in Lok Sabha from 3 states, or if it is recognized as a state political party in 4 states. So these are the criteria fixed by the Election Commission to become a national party. Now, the voting rights were reduced from 21 to 18 years during the period of the Rajiv Gandhi government by 61st Amendment. Now, I switch over to another point, and that is classification of parties in India. Friends, as you know that parties are the foundation stone of electoral process in any country, in any democratic country, and that's why I am now discussing about the classification of political parties in India. As you see from this chart, the classification of parties, national and secular. Then there is regional, and thereafter the local and communitarian, and then ad hoc, and thereafter fringe party. So there are 4 kinds of party prevalent in India. Number 1 is national and secular. Number 2 is regional. Number 3 local and communitarian. Number 3 ad hoc, and number 4 is fringe party. In the category of national and secular party, number 1 is, it has to be divided into 2: ideologically committed, non-committed, and ideologically committed. In the category of ideologically non-committed, it is a Congress party. Congress party has been the umbrella party during the period of our freedom struggle, and even after independence, it was the amalgam of different kind of ideologies. Although in 1957 it declared to establish a socialistic pattern of society. Now in 1991 the Congress party under Narasimha Rao government launched liberalization, globalization and privatization. In short, LPG model, and the hitherto policy, the socialist policy adopted by Congress party was now left. Why? Because of the exigencies of the situation. What were the exigencies? Number 1, the prices of petroleum products were very much rising on account of Iraq war. Number 2, there was too much inflationary trend, around 13% in our economy. It was unbearable for the masses. And thirdly, there was acute shortage of foreign exchange reserve. So all 3 factors combined together forced Government of India to launch LPG model of new economic policy. So Congress party always adopted policies according to the situation. Now, in short, it can be said that in spite of its avowed policy of LPG model, it is still left of the center. It always adopts the policy of left of the center for the betterment of the poor. Now, in the category of ideologically committed, there are two parties. Number one, BJP. This is called rightist party, and second is leftist party, comprising CPI, Communist Party of India, and Marxist Communist Party, CPM. So, what is see that BJP has an avowed agenda. Number one, to abrogate Article 370 and thereby ending the special status of Jammu and Kashmir, and the party has completed this agenda. The second agenda is to have common civil code, and it is yet to implement this Article 44 under our constitution, which exhorts the state to establish common code for all religious groups. And third agenda was to complete Ram Mandir, and now it is in the process of being built in the near future. It has always adopted the policies which can be said right to the center. A kind of corporate culture has developed during the regime of BJP. Now, the ideology of leftist is to establish a socialist society in our country. So, both the BJP and communist parties have ideological agenda. Now, I switch over to the regional parties. What are the regional parties? Now, regional party can be divided into two categories. Number one is communal and second is non-communal. Under the category of communal, we can include Shrimani Akali Dal, DMK and AIDMK, Shiv Sena, Muslim League, which operates in Kerala, and Republican Party of India, which operates in Maharashtra. And under the category of non-communal regional party, these are Telugu Desam Party, which operates in Andhra Pradesh, Assam Gan Parishad in the province of Assam, National Conference, it operates in Jammu and Kashmir, Haryana Congress, it operates in Haryana. Now, in addition, Rashtriya Janata Dal, RJD, which operates in Bihar, JDU, Janata Dal United, it operates in Bihar, Janata Dal Secular, it operates in Karnataka, Biju Janata Dal, it operates in Odisha. Now, under the category of local and communitarian, Jharkhand Mukti Morcha, it operates in Jharkhand state under the leadership of Shibu Soren. Then Mizo National Front, MNF in Mizoram, Gorkha League, operates in Darjeeling areas. Manipur People's Party, it operates in Manipur. Arunachal Congress, it operates in Arunachal Pradesh. Now there are certain ad hoc parties. These parties have been made on account of differences with the main party. Number 1, Kerala Congress. Number 2, Bangla Congress. Number 3, Lok Shakti. Number 4, Rashtriya Lok Dal. And in the final category, parties are the fringe party, Hindu Mahasabha. Although before independence, this party was very much prominent party, which wanted to establish a Hindu Rashtra in India, always tried to keep the interest of Hindus at the top. Now, Janata Party, Praja Socialist Party, all these parties have become now defunct. So now, in addition to these party, mention may be made about the Trinamool Congress led by Mamata Banerjee, TMC, and now it has started to enlarge the area of activity in Goa, in Meghalaya, in Tripura, in addition to West Bengal. So, I have tried to classify parties on the basis of different criteria. Now, we switch over to impact of electoral politics in India. What are the impact? Number 1 is the increasing participation of voters in Lok Sabha elections. Friends, as you know, I have given this chart. In 1952, the voter turnout was only 45.7%. Now, in 2014, the voter turnout was 66.44%. So we see that there is a continuous progress as far as the participation of voter is concerned. In 2019 election, it was more than 67%. In 2019 election, it was more than 67%. So what you see that the participation of voters is increasing with the passage of every general election. This is a good sign for all of us. Now, this is another chart by which I want to show you that how voters turnout in India, and a comparison has been made by me between India and the UK, United Kingdom, as far as the voter turnout is concerned. So what you see that earlier this red line is about UK and the blue line is about India. So what you see that earlier days in 1991 the voter participation was lesser, 55. Now in 2011 what you see that it has gone to higher level. This shows, but in UK what we find that in earlier time the voter participation was very much high. Now it has come down to lower level, even lower than that of the participation in India. So this is a big sign for the strengthening of our democracy. Again, when asked about the importance of vote, 67% people told in affirmative that voting right is very much tool for empowerment. Now 18% people said that it has no effect, and 15% people answered that they do not know. So the 67% people now realize the strength and power of voting rights for empowerment of masses. Now the second important ingredient of the electoral process is highest participation by women voters in 2019. What do you find? That with the passage of time, the participation of women has very much increased. BJP on 303 seats and Congress only 52. But one disturbing aspect is that no visible improvement in the representation of women in India, in parliament. In 2019 election, what you see, that the participation of elected women MPs in Lok Sabha was 14.3%. It is less than a backward country like Pakistan, where the percentage is around 19%. So what you see, that in 2019 the representation of women increased to 14.4%, but still it is very less. This graph will give you a clear picture that in 1952, 22 women were elected. In 16th general election in 2014, 62 women were elected out of the total candidate of 668. Now, it is heartening to note that the gender-wise participation in general election is manifest or is an indication that how the participation of women voter is increasing. And so by this chart, what we see, that this yellow graph is for male, and this one is the total, this chart is for total turnout, and this one is, this graph is for female chart. So what we see by this chart shows that how the women participation in general election increased with every general election, and by 2019 what you see, that this has become more or less same. So it is a very much a blessing for the strength of our democracy. Now this is the chart for the share of women in the lower house of parliament, and this chart will show you that what is the situation of the women representation in different countries. And what you see, that in Rwanda, a country of Africa, the women representation is 61.36. Cuba, it is 53.2%. Bolivia, 53.1%. South Africa, 42.7%. Finland, it is 42%. Senegal, it is 41.8%. Sweden, it is 46.1%. So friends, what you see, when we compare our women representation with these countries, we find that more and more steps have to be taken for increasing representation of women, and this can be done by way of reservation of women in parliament and state assemblies. Otherwise, their position will not improve effectively. It will take longer time. Now, another point is rise of increasing communal divide. What does this mean? The voting pattern of 2019 election itself indicate as to how people have become communally divided insofar as their voting behavior is concerned. Take for example the election of Bhopal constituency. A candidate who has been Chief Minister of Madhya Pradesh for 10 years, he was defeated by a large margin by a greenhorn candidate who had never contested election earlier. So what does this indicate? That the Hindus and Muslims became pole apart as far as their election behavior is concerned. In UP or in northern India, where Muslim constitute around 16% of the total population, they have become redundant. Their political value came down heavily. And why it happened? Because of the polarization politics. So what you see, the rise of increasing communal divide is a detrimental for the progress of our democracy. We must mitigate this tendency as soon as possible. Again, there is another minus point, and this is regional sentiment, increasing regional sentiment. And that's why, friends, you see that there grew numerous regional parties in different parts of the country. And this happened because of the regional disparities. Since independence, the regional disparities widened with the passage of time. Those states which were already developed during the British period, they developed by leaps and bounds. And those states which were backward economically during the British period, they lagged behind. So now the situation has obtained to such a pass that the state of UP, Bihar, particularly the eastern UP and Bihar, Jharkhand, these states have become the labor colonies for the developed states like Maharashtra, Punjab, Telangana, Tamil Nadu, Kerala. So because of the regional disparities, regional sentiments have very much exploited by the local leaders, and this resulted into the voting pattern of people guided by regional sentiment. This is not a good sign for our democracy. Again, there is another drawback in our electoral process, and the behavior of our people are guided by linguistic preference. In 1983, N.T. Ramarao exploited this sentiment of linguistic preference. Telugu Bidda sentiment was exploited by him, and the all-powerful Prime Minister of Srimati Indira Gandhi was defeated by N.T. Ramarao in the State Assembly of Undivided Andhra Pradesh. Again, and similar situation obtained in the state of Tamil Nadu. whereby DMK or later on AIDMK exploited the sentiments of local people on the basis of language, that they accused the northern Indian leaders that they want to put Hindi upon Tamil Nadu. And so people started accusing central government, started revolting against the central authority, and this sentiment of linguistic preference was exploited by the DMK and later on AIDMK. And still they are in power for the last 60 years in Tamil Nadu. Now, personality based, one of our drawback in the electoral process is that instead of facing election on the basis of social and economic policies, most of the elections are won on the personality cult. Earlier, elections were won on the personality of Jawaharlal Nehru, Srimati Indira Gandhi, Rajiv Gandhi, and Atal Bihari Vajpayee, and now Sri Narendra Modi, the present incumbent Prime Minister. So what you see, that the electoral process is governed more or less by the personality cult, and all parties have become personality based. This is not a good sign for our democracy. Again, another drawback of our electoral process is criminalization of politics. Because of the wealth power, because of the muscle power, most of the active criminals have become the members of parliament and state assemblies. According to one data given by a NGO, 40% of our representatives had criminal background. This is not a good sign for us. So, although Election Commission has tried its level best to curtail the money power, muscle power in the election, but it is self-evident that how money and muscle play a strong role, an important role in our election. And so the process of criminalization of politics must be curtailed at any cost for the strengthening of our democracy. And similarly, role of money power, I have already told you, and thereafter rise of family party. Friends, what you see, that after independence, party like Jansangh was created by Shyama Prasad Mukherjee, who happened to be the industry minister in the cabinet of Jawaharlal Nehru, and later on he resigned and then started a new party that is called Jansangh with the support of RSS. In 1977, Jansangh merged with newly formed Janata Party, but in 1980, with the dissolution of Janata Party government and with the coming of the Srimati Gandhi as the Prime Minister of India in 1980, the erstwhile Jansangh members formed Bharatiya Janata Party, BJP, and its first president was Atal Bihari Vajpayee, who later became Prime Minister of India for more than 6 years. So what you see, that in 1950-51, Praja Socialist Party was also formed, Socialist Party was also formed, Swatantra Party by Rajgopalachari was also formed, which contested election in 1962 onwards. So what you see, that now the party has been reduced as family party. and there is no process of election. Elections are conducted only for name, only to show election commission. Otherwise, what you see that the DMK party led by Stalin or YSR party, then RJD by Lalu Yadav or JDU by Nitish Kumar, Samajwadi Party by Akhilesh Yadav, Congress Party by the Gandhi family. All these parties are now being governed by family party. And so there is lack of transparency in the functioning of this party. This is not a good sign for us. Why? Because I have already told you that parties are the backbone and foundation of the electoral process in India. So if parties are not run transparently, when a single person continue to be its president for 15 years, 20 years, this is not a good sign. During the period of freedom struggle, what we have found that Congress party held election every year. It is another thing that Muslim League never elected its leader since 1934, and Muhammad Jinnah continued to be the president of Muslim League till his death. So no election took place in Muslim League party, but in Congress it was an annual election. So what you see that now there is no regular election in national party or in regional party. For example, you see the Akali party which operates in Punjab. It has become a fiefdom of Badal family for the last 60 years. So what you see, this is the grave problem for us. Problem of defection. Friends, as you know that anti-defection bill or act was passed by way of 1952 amendment. And now according to this provision, at least 1/3 of the legislative party has the right to defect from its original party. Otherwise, they will lose their membership. Now, this clause or the provision of defection is also being put to dust. Why I am telling this? It is the latest example is in MP, where the Congress formed government and continued in power for 1.5 years, and thereafter those supporters of Jyotiradiत्य Scindia, they defected from the Congress, they resigned from the Congress party, again contested election and then became the part of the BJP government. So the defection and the problem of instability still haunts our polity. Again, the misuse of religion and caste, and I have already told you that during the election period, although there is a strict provision that nobody can invoke religion or caste in his favor, but everybody knows that how during the election time candidates invoke religion and caste for their benefit. Now again, more stress upon identity politics. Friends, as you know that in our country, the socio-economic problem have lagged behind. More emphasis is on identity politics. For example, Dr. Ambedkar, who is the maker of Indian Constitution, he was the head of the drafting committee. Now he is being projected as the Dalit leader, and those parties which support the interest of Dalits, they invoke the name of Dr. Ambedkar, and Dr. Ambedkar is now being treated as a Dalit leader. But this is not a true proposition. Again, another point of serious concern is the increasing cost of election with the passage of time. And you will see this graph. First, in 1952, the total cost of election was 10.45 crore. That was a meager amount. Now in 2014 election, what you see? That it was 3,426 crore rupees incurred in the electoral process. And so, what you see that the cost is increasing day by day. In spite of the rules framed by Election Commission, it is evident that the election expenses are increasing by leaps and bounds, with the result that those people who are not economically strong cannot fight election. And this is very wrong signal for our democracy. Friends, as you know, that democracy is a means of government where every citizen has the right to vote and every citizen has right to be elected. So what you see, that our democracy is now being converted into oligarchy. So this is not a good sign. Again, another point is that most of the elected members are elected even getting less than 50% of the valid polls, with the result that they do not represent the majority of the voters. And that's why what you see, that when a communal right occurs or when any law and order situation occurs in his assembly, constituency, what we find, they are at a loss to lead the masses. Why? Because even getting 25% vote, they get elected on account of so many claimants, so many parties fighting elections. So we see that even after getting meager 20 to 25% vote of the total valid votes of that constituency, a candidate gets elected. This anomaly has to be corrected. Again, slow judicial process of dealing with the election petitions. Friends, as you see that whenever there is dispute, candidate file petition in High Court, but the slow process of judgment makes it redundant, non-effective. So we will have to do more things on this front. Problem of instability, and this is the weak point of our democratic process. And why I am telling you, I have just given the example of Madhya Pradesh. In different states, the candidates which were elected on certain party symbols, now they completely switch over to another party. For example, the MLAs of Congress parties, switched over to BJP. Similarly, what we have seen in Meghalaya, where 12 MLAs of Congress party switched over to Trinamool Congress. So there is always a problem of instability, and this is immoral. Why I am telling you? Because when you are elected on a symbol of a particular party, you must not switch over to another party, as we found in the case of Goa, where the Congress was the largest party in the previous election, but its maximum MLAs switched over to BJP. So this is not a good sign for our democratic setup. And another point is problem of fake and non-serious candidates. As you know, my friends, that in certain constituencies the number of contestant goes to 60, 80. So this is a wrong precedent. We must check this non-serious and fake candidate, because it entails higher cost in conducting election. Now another feature of our electoral process is that politicization of caste. By this graph, I will show you that how caste has become politicized, and it is a good sign for us. Why? This graph will tell you that the upper caste votes, the percentage of upper caste voter, those upper caste who voted is 56%, and now for OBC it is 58%, for scheduled caste it is 60%, and for scheduled tribe it is 61%. So what we see, that the percentage of voters are maximum in the category of scheduled tribe, scheduled caste and OBC. When we compare with the upper caste voters, most of the rich people or upper caste people do not go to vote at the polling station. Now what we find in US we find that the white people and their percentage is 60%. For black it is 56%, and for Hispanic it is 28%. So what you see, that the white people vote more than the black and Hispanic. But in India, what we find, that the politicization of caste by way of larger participation of lower caste or tribal. This is a good sign of our democracy, because they have full confidence in the mechanism of democracy. Now this chart will show you that how BJP has become dominant party since 2014 election, and now what you see, that its vote share is 38%, and for Congress it is around 20%. So what you see, that the situation has become now reversed. Earlier, during 1952 1997, what you see, it was the dominance of Congress party. Or you can see 1966, it was the dominance of Congress party, and thereafter the state parties which were functioning at the state level, they started challenging since 1966, and finally in 1977 the Congress party was thrown away in 1977 and by the newly formed Janata Party headed by Jayaprakash Narayan, and Morarji Desai became the Prime Minister. So thereafter, what you see that again Congress party came back to power in 1980 and it continued in power from 1980 to 1966 with the aberration of VP Singh government for 1.5 years and Chandrasekhar government for 6 months. So later on, from 1996 onward, BJP under the leadership of Atal Bihari Vajpayee continued in power for 6 years. Later on, 2004, Congress again came into power and it continued up to 2014, albeit with the support of so many parties. But in 2014, BJP got landslide victory and it got 282 MPs in Lok Sabha. In 2019 election, it won 303 MPs. So what you see that its vote share increased to 37 or 38%, and the vote share of Congress slide to 20%, and it's only 52 MPs were elected in 2019 election. Now, this chart will show you that the victory margin of BJP was the highest in the last 30 years. And what you see that this one is this line is yellow line is for BJP, and you see how the margin is there. This line is blue line is for Congress, and the margin how so much there is a wide gap between Congress and BJP. This chart will show you that how BJP, Congress got votes in different segments like rural areas. What you see, this saffron color is for BJP, and in 2009 what you see that BJP got only 77 seats in rural areas. For Congress, the blue line, it was 123 seats, and for others it was 153. Now the situation got reversed in 2014, whereas the saffron color got 190 seats in rural areas, and for Congress it was only 28, because you might be knowing that in 2009 election Congress got in total 206 seats in Lok Sabha. Now what you see that in 2019 the situation again was in favor of BJP, where in rural areas it got 207 seats, whereas for Congress it was the gain, or it was a loss of 2 seats, 26 seats. Similarly, in semi-urban areas, what you see for Saffron Party, it was 20 for 2009, for Congress it was 50, and in 2014 what you see that for Saffron Party it was 53, and for Congress it was 8, and in 2019 BJP or Saffron Party has 58 seats, Congress has only 10 seats. Similarly, for highly urban areas, what this picture show that for Saffron Party in 2009 it was only 20 seats, and for Congress it was 33. In 2014 the situation reversed. For Saffron Party it went to 40, for Congress it was 8, for In 2019, for BJP it was 40, for Congress it was 14. So more or less BJP held the ground in 2014 and 2019 in highly urban areas. Now, an important feature or a good sign of our democratic process is that the violence in election has started receding because of the stringent policy adopted by Election Commission in different general election. So what you see that this graph will tell you how the violence, the incidence of violence has come down with the passage of time, and now from this one 2016 to 2021. So the graph regarding the violence in election shows that incidences have come down, and this is a good sign for us. Now, a positive aspect of our electoral process is that it resulted into democratization of our society. Voters are now more focused on accountability and the quality of governance. And you might be knowing that how Nitish Kumar won the previous election in Bihar in spite of the heavy odds against him, and in the face of the formidable opposition of RJD, Congress and small caste parties. So Nitish Kumar won the election. Why? Because of two factors. One was his policy of prohibition, Sharab-bandi, by which this policy was very much appreciated by women in Bihar, and women voted for Nitish Kumar in large chunk. And secondly, the good governance. These two factors work in favor of Nitish Kumar, and that's why he won the election in spite of heavy odds against him. So now people want accountable government, a government which can deliver. Although there may be certain aberration when the wave in favor of certain party may change the complete scenario, and we have seen many times that it happened in our electoral process. But these waves are just aberration. Now people want accountable government and quality of governance, a government which can deliver for the betterment of poor. And again, another important positive aspect is that people have now become conscious of the power of their votes. So what we find that in spite of the money power of a rich candidate, it is not certain whether he will win the election or not. We have seen so many examples where money, lakhs of rupees have been distributed among voters, but voters took the money and did not vote the particular candidate. So now they have become conscious of the power of their votes. They know, and I have shown you already in our graph that 67% people are now convinced about the power of votes, which results into the empowerment of common man. Conclusion. What conclusion we can derive from this lecture? Friends, as you know that India is a large country. it has got continental dimension, and so democracy must be a form of government for the unity of the whole India and for the progress of the masses. There is no substitute of democracy and electoral process in India. So friend, I am winding up my lecture as of now. Please share and subscribe my channel AJIS Academy. If you have any comment, please write down your comments. I will try my level best to answer your queries. Thank you very much.